My mouth was speaking, but my heart was crumbling. But I didn't want to stop talking because that would mean I'd have to go back to the real world and go back to what I was terrified was happening inside of my body. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm from the US. I live in Sweden. I was a missionary for many years. I have a lot of stories and experiences. A lot of things in my life have changed me and made me into who I am. And one of the most defining things that has happened in my life was the time when I had a miscarriage. It was my very first pregnancy. So my husband and I were not trying to have kids at this point. We knew that life was about to get very complicated because we were living in California, not by choice, but because of visa issues. We were trying to get back to South Africa, and at the point when I found out that I was pregnant, Morton was in Sweden and I was in California, and I was very hormonal and upset and missing him, and we'd never been separated that long before, and I didn't know that some of those extra hormones were. When I took that pregnancy test, I just was shocked. Absolutely shocked. And so happy, but so shocked. I remember walking around thinking, everyone must know. Everyone must look at me and see something different about me. How can they not tell? How can nobody ask me what is going on? Why my eyes are freaking out? Why I'm walking on air? It was so fun when I told Morton. We were Skyping, and I told him I wanted to see his face, and he was confused, and he walked outside and sat down in the grass, and I told him, and he went like this. What? 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 That's a happy memory. So very, very early on, like maybe the day of taking the pregnancy test, I had this experience with prayer. There was a woman named Suzanne who was leading us in this prayer exercise. And what we were meant to do was to think of somebody who'd hurt us and to walk through this exercise of seeing their hurts and seeing their wounds and letting go of that. But I couldn't think of anyone who'd hurt me. I tried. I felt pretty good about the fact that I was not holding any grudges against anyone. And I just couldn't keep my mind off of how excited I was to be a mom. And so I thought of my tiny, tiny little rapidly multiplying cells child. And I followed this prayer exercise. I followed this prayer exercise, and I imagined the tiny little seeds that were going to become my child in my hands. And I imagined walking down the long corridor to the throne of God. And then in this prayer exercise, we were meant to put the person that was on our hearts down and turn around and walk away without them, because we were entrusting them to Jesus' care and to Jesus' will. And I remember just ugly crying at this thought of putting this child down and walking away without them, walking back alone. And it was a really intense experience, but then I didn't think much about it. I kind of just figured, I'm an emotional pregnant woman. This is part of it. But I will come back to that later. So every single Friday, we would take a picture of my non-existent belly, because, it takes a little bit to actually start showing. I remember feeling like I should be feeling more symptoms. I should be feeling more pregnant. And I wasn't, and I tried not to think about it. And I prayed for this baby. And I prayed, oh Lord, let this child be a mighty, mighty person for you. Let them not be ashamed of the truth. Let them be full of courage and strength and power. And these were my charismatic raised Pentecostal prayers. We really wanted to have a pregnancy nickname. That seemed like a really cool thing. And nothing really seemed to stick. And then the lovely lady that we were traveling with said that we could borrow her middle name, borrow 4 letters from it. Her middle name is Voyoloike, which means her happiness. And there's either 3 African languages, I can't remember which one. It's either Zulu, Sotho, or Xhosa. One of those 3. But the name that we got was Voyo. Voyo, which means joy or happiness. Very, very shortly after we found the name, the nickname, we're visiting a church because in Covenant Players, we are a traveling drama ministry, and if we didn't have a church to share on a particular Sunday, we would go and visit a church, try to make contact, see if we could perform something that morning, or if we could arrange something for the future, or just give information to let them find out more about us. So we visited a church, and we didn't get a chance to talk to anybody, so we sat through the service. And then afterwards, we were waiting to talk to somebody, and I went to the bathroom, and there was blood. And I remember immediately just going, I think I might have said it out loud, "Oh no, please God, no. Please no." So many thoughts were going through my mind. All I could think of was that I just could not imagine losing this baby. And I think I cried a little bit, but I didn't know when we were going to speak to somebody, so I just had to choke it down. And I did this job for a long time. I was in Covenant Players for 12 years. So anybody who's done a job for that long, you just know how to go on autopilot. You know how to say the right words, go through the motions. And so I went through the motions. The pastor's wife said, "Oh, he can't talk to you, but I'll talk to you." And I was like, "Great! So let me tell you about the ministry." And I proceeded to blah, blah, on and on and on, like we do, about the plays that we did, about my favorite plays, about the ministry, about the history of the ministry. My mouth was speaking, but my heart was crumbling. But I didn't want to stop talking because that would mean I'd have to go back to the real world and go back to what I was terrified was happening inside of my body. It's a real disassociation. And I felt so fake. I felt so wrong. Shortly after, we managed to get a doctor's appointment. We were going to wait a few more weeks to go to a doctor because I really wanted to see a heartbeat. I wanted to see the baby, and I didn't want to go too early because I'd already gone to a doctor earlier in Germany, and he said, "Oh, it's too early. You're only about 6 weeks." And there was just a little black spot on the ultrasound picture. When the bleeding started, they were like, "No, you need to go now." Denise and Morton and me too. And so we went with just our hearts in our throats the whole way, just praying that we would get to hear a heartbeat, praying that it would be okay. And we went to the doctor, and it felt like it took forever to actually get the ultrasound happening. And when he went in there and looked, it was still just a black spot. And he said that it was a blighted ovum. And he said a lot of stuff. He said that the first ultrasound picture should have been a clue, and the doctor maybe should have caught it then. He said that he was more concerned about the white spots under my eyes, which is a sign of high blood pressure. And it's got this really weird name, like... No, I'm not speaking in tongues. I'm just making fun of whatever this stuff is called. He left us alone while we cried. And I just couldn't hardly look at anybody on our way out. Morton handled paying for stuff, paying for the appointment. I remember holding on to by his recommendation, I should get a D&C, dilation and cutterage, because he wasn't sure if I was going to naturally deliver. And all of these words just dug into me like a knife, and I couldn't get through talking about any of it without crying. It was the worst couple of days of my life. Morton and I didn't want to do anything. We could barely leave the room. We just watched silly TV shows so that we wouldn't think. And then as soon as an episode would finish, tears would form in his eyes, and he would just say, "Another one?" I just want anyone watching this to know that you're not alone. It's a common thing. 1 in 4 women have miscarriage. And it hurts. And I don't believe that you should wait until you've reached a certain level before you tell someone. Because nobody should suffer alone. Nobody should feel that they have to carry that alone. You don't have to tell the world. You don't have to do a Facebook announcement if you don't feel like it, but tell somebody. And if you are missing your child in heaven, there are groups on Facebook you can join to share your story, to share your pictures, to share your pain. There's a group called Hope Mommies, and I can link it down below. The last thing I want to say is a theological statement. Voyo is not an angel. Voyo is a person in heaven that we will meet someday. Angels are angels, also created beings. God created everyone, angels, people. The babies that we don't get to hold in this world are hope babies, not angel babies. So, thank you for watching this, and please feel free to share your stories, share the names of your babies that are in heaven. Grief is not something that you just get through. From point A to point B, you carry your children in your heart with you forever. My twins did not make me a mom. Voyo made me a mom. I was a mom the second they took that pregnancy test and it was confirmed. So if you have never had a child on this world but you've had miscarriages, you're still a mom. It counts. And I'm sorry for your loss. So thank you for watching, and be mightily blessed, my friends.